Watch. Joining us on the line now is the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, Dwight Ball. Mr. Ball, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Ted. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Great.
Let's start with Mr. Conacher's first contention, that by accepting the bank's favor of debt forgiveness, you and the other Liberal MHAs have done something illegal, that you violated Section 7 of the province's Conflict of Interest Act.
Yeah, well, first of all, Section 7, I think the piece of legislation that Mr. Conacher was talking about is really the standards of conduct for non-elected public office holders. So the MHAs it's a different piece of legislation that, of course, that is a House of Assembly Act. MHAs are actually held in to a higher level of responsibility there. So it's something that's what we are governed by. And as an example of that, Ted, we have elected MHAs would actually on an annual basis provide, their everything right down to their credit card, the balances, to their bank account balances. So this stuff is all out there for public disclosure right now. So there's really no conflict of interest from an elected MHA. We file this stuff on an annual basis and happy to do so. And we'll say that, we, as a party, we're compliant with Elections NL as well, and we file our audited statements just a few weeks ago. So right now there is no conflict of interest at all for any Liberal member or certainly for the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador.
But Mr. Conacher says, and I'm reading from the Act now, Section 7.1 says, a public office holder shall not directly or indirectly accept a fee, gift, or personal benefit except by compensation or authorized by law. And what he's saying is, now that you guys don't have to fundraise or find the money to pay off the penalties and the interest, that's a benefit, and that's not allowed.
Yeah, so what he didn't talk about, though, was the level of public disclosure on this, and this is where this is what elected officials and we have done. This is publicly disclosed right now. This information is applied to Elections NL, and as of this morning, we've released the 2014 audited statements, which clearly outlines the banks that were involved, the amount of interest that was forgiven, and the principal payment that's been made. So we're very pleased. We're very pleased today that to be able to report that the Liberal Party is debt-free and that the information now is out there for the public to review.
Well, why is that information out here now and not on Wednesday? When you made the announcement, you wouldn't name the banks and you wouldn't say how much money you'd been forgiven. Why the change in 48 hours? A
good question, Ted. What happened on Wednesday is, number one, step one for us. This was an agreement that we had negotiated that was going to happen over a 2-year period. And as a result of the efforts that we put into getting ready for the next election and the fundraising initiatives that we've had, we were able to make those payments over really a 10-month period. So, first of all, I wanted to make sure that all the conditions of the agreement that we had met, and secondly, as we had filed this information with Elections NL, I wanted to check back with them to make sure that there was no questions based on our audited statement. We were able to do that yesterday. No questions coming from Elections NL. So we're very pleased to be able to report that there was just under $500,000 that's been paid to reduce this debt, and the interest amount that's been forgiven is $371,000. So these are the numbers. Clearly out there was always my intention, as the commitment that I made as leader of the party, to pay this debt back, and secondly, to make this information available to the public when I was in a position to do so.
Because on Wednesday, as you know, the government members were quick to say so much for his promises of transparency.
Well, you have no worries about my promise to be transparent. Things like this, in terms of the financing of the party, it was always my intentions to put this out there. But one thing I wanted to make sure is that we're fully compliant with Elections NL. Pleased to say today that we are, and this information is now publicly available.
All right, Mr. Conacher, to return to what Duff Conacher had to say, Mr. Conacher also says that because the banks forgave you the interest and the penalties, that in the future you're in a conflict of interest inherently when it comes to any legislation dealing with the banks, that they've done you a favor, that you'd have to recuse yourself from any debate or votes on any legislation that affects them. What do you make of that contention?
Well, first of all, it's, most legislation in our province right now that deals with the banking industry is federally regulated. And secondly, that any involvement that we would have with a bank or a financial institution is publicly disclosed. And no matter if it's a bank or if it's an association or any other business interest that a member might have, once you make that public disclosure, it's then the members would have to step aside if indeed they are in a conflict of interest on a decision that will be made related to those particular companies. So really right now it's about public disclosure. The conflict of interest rules and conditions are clearly, these are things that are readily available right now, And so I don't feel today that we're in any conflict of interest at all. Most of the decisions around legislation dealing with the banking industry is done at a federal level.
Well, what about his related argument that the banks here have given you a $371,000 donation, as it were, that this is another example of people with money can curry favor? He said it's a sign that the politicians in Newfoundland are for sale.
Well, I don't see it that way. We entered into a negotiation with the banks based on the level of debt that we had. So the negotiation led to an agreement on what the conditions of repayment would be. And there's, this happens within the private sector as well from time to time. It happens from time to time with individuals. The main thing, though, Ted, is that you publicly disclose this information, and that is what we have done at the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Now, as for the amount of money that the banks forgave the Liberal Party, $371,434, that's money that Scotiabank, RBC, and CIBC are going to be able to write off as donations to the Liberal Party in the years to come, tax-deductible donations, I have to note. So, in effect, the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador will subsidize your party's failure to fully pay your bill. Is that fair to the people of this province?
Well, what Elections NL has done, we have not given any tax receipt to those financial institutions for the interest forgiveness. Elections NL, what they do is they identify this as interest forgiveness. So, right now, is for what I know of this transaction, there is no tax receipt given to the banks for this. There is no impact at all on taxpayers in Newfoundland and Labrador, which is very different than the concept that Mr. Conacher was supporting, which, like in Quebec, which says that taxpayers should indeed fund political parties, therefore making less money available for health care, education, and infrastructure needs. So clearly there's no tax credit or relief given to the banks for these contributions. This is interest forgiveness, which is defined by Elections NL.
At the end of all of this, though, do you think this leaves a sour taste in people's mouths that here the party that might soon form the government's been cut a special deal by some of the wealthiest organizations in the country, that, you're trying to say, look, we're going to do things differently than the PCs have done over the last 12 years. And I'm already hearing from some people saying it sounds like you guys are just more of the same.
Well, we have three political parties in the province right now. Everyone, if you donate to the NDP, you donate to the PC party, you donate to the Liberal Party. There are rules that are in place by Elections NL how that would happen, how that would occur. And I will say that all political parties right now use the very same mechanism. If you wanted to donate to the NDP right now, the rules and the conditions are there. If you go on their website, you can donate to the NDP party the same way as you can donate to any of the three parties right now. It's the same rules that apply. What's important here is that we publicly disclose all the information and where the donations and the contributions that come from in our system. Should this lead to election financing reform? Absolutely. I'm open for that discussion. Lots of provinces have been down that road, and it's a discussion that I look forward to, leading in our province.
But do you think it taints your party's image in any way or your chances in the fall? If we didn't put this information out there publicly, yes, it would leave a negative impression. But the fact that we've clearly put this out there in advance of even having Elections NL post this stuff up there, we've been very proactive in this. Right now, we've met all the conditions and the rules that they apply to election financing and contributions to political parties in our province right now. So it's I don't believe it. I think really right now comes at the end of a lengthy negotiation that we've had with the banks in this particular case, and really right now I'm just looking forward to getting on with the campaign, and then with that campaign people will have a say, and they will make the final say, I guess, and have their choice who they want to see as the next government in Newfoundland and Labrador. Mr. Ball, I want to thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, Ted. Thank you.
That is Dwight Ball. He is the leader of the Provincial Liberals.